Hey guys, it's Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, back with another edition of our awesome podcast that's going to provide some motivation, inspiration, and education by an amazing guest today. And so let me introduce him to you. This is Mr. Warren Levy. He's an international recognized martial artist, entrepreneur, and founder of Warren Levy Championship Martial Arts, one of Long Island's most successful and respected training centers. 30 years of experience, he's trained thousands of students, coached national champions, and helped develop Team USA level competitors. A lifelong black belt and true industry leader, Warren has built a community powerhouse known for its youth development, self-defense training, and high-performance coaching. He's also launched influential programs like anti-bullying initiatives, stranger danger workshops, women's self-defense seminars, and school partnerships across Long Island. Through his innovative teaching and business leadership, Warren continues to shape the next generation of martial arts instructors. Today, his mission remains simple: to build stronger, more confident individuals through the life-changing power of martial arts. Mr. Levy, great to have you on the show.
Wow, thank you for that introduction. That was so amazing. Gee whiz. Well, I must say, I loved your introduction when I was watching that video. You have done so much, and obviously we know each other for years, but I mean, just seeing all your flying things, and it's amazing what you've done, my friend.
Well, I'm pretty excited about that. I'm sure you're referring to the pro wrestling. I've got a big match coming up December 26th at Legends Night in Chatsworth, California. It's going to be an awesome event at the MPW Arena. So I'm getting back in the ring for the first time in a couple years, actually. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
So it just means there's someone out there that's about to get beaten up. And they haven't yet got beaten up in a while, but it's about to happen very, very soon. That's what I understood from that.
They have no idea what they are in for come December 26th. So
All right,
absolutely.
all right.
But hey, this
Lift
show
me
is
up. Good stuff.
this show is all about you and talking about your story and where you're at in life. By the way, if you're watching this live and you have any questions or comments, just shoot those out there and we'll be happy to answer any questions. We'd love to see your comments and know that you're watching. Also, head over to YouTube and subscribe to Master Motivation Podcast. You can be watching it live there as well. So catch me up a little bit. We were just talking before we started. It's been a few years since we've seen each other in person. Obviously, lots of social media going on. You're doing amazing stuff out there. And tell everybody what's going on in your life.
Well, where do I start? I was born in, no, okay. So, I mean, basically doing the same thing that I've been doing for many, many years in Long Island, New York. And I think that might be part of the success is just staying focused and disciplined on one entity, on one enterprise, and just trying to like build and grow in that one focused task and challenge each day. So I think mainly still love my martial arts, still enjoy training. I train every day, and I think I still enjoy getting up and inspiring others.
Yeah, I love it. Well, hey, tell me a little bit more about living, on Long Island. What did you grow up there?
So I don't, I didn't, and I mean, you could almost say I've grown up there. I came to Long Island, New York at about 24, but I actually grew up in South Africa. So I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa, which is the accent that you hear. And, I had this opportunity many, many years ago when I was 24 years old to, to get sponsored to come and be in America. And, since then, since coming and getting my green card and then my citizenship, it's been a fantastic ride. I would say it's almost the American dream.
Did you start martial arts in South Africa or did you start martial arts when you came to the States?
Yeah, so I actually started in South Africa, and then I got sponsored to come to America, to the States, for my martial arts. So I actually came on
Got
an
it.
alien of extraordinary ability. That was my visa.
Okay, all right.
So, yeah.
And how was the culture? What was there a culture shock moving from South Africa to New York? I mean, what was that like for you?
You know what? There is definitely a bit of a culture shock. One story that actually comes to mind is, I was working in the dojo and, coming from South Africa, when we put in our mail or our post, we put it into a red post box. And the owner at the time said to me, "Hey, I want you to go and mail this letter for me." So I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was looking around and around, and I don't know I couldn't find this mailbox. I'm looking for this red mailbox. Went back to him. I said, I can't see the red mailbox. He's like, it's not red, it's blue. So, that's like one little bit of a story. Another one that actually comes to mind is when I first started teaching in South Africa, you'd say something like, could you go and fetch that for me, please? And over here, I go on the floor and I'm like, I'm going and I'm telling these kids, go fetch that, like a command style teacher.
Right, right,
And
right.
I'm a strong karate discipline. And I'm telling the kids, go fetch that pad, go put that noodle away, go get this. And the parents, I see their faces like, I'm like thinking to myself, man, what am I doing wrong? Because I really didn't know what I'm doing wrong over here. I'm being so polite, fetch this, take that, get this, and eventually the one mom called me over. She's like, you talking to my child like they're a dog. Like, why are you? And I'm like, only in America we tell our dogs to go and fetch something. So,
Yeah, I bet that was just kind of an interesting learning curve to learn, like, some of these small little things along the way. But hey, at least you had a parent that stepped up and told you, because it probably could have cost you students because of that.
I mean, I'm sure, but I think also, when the parents love you, you can make mistakes. I mean, as a good instructor, and you're a great instructor, everyone makes mistakes, and I think parents are quite sympathetic and they are aware that you're not doing it maliciously, and as long as you're not doing something maliciously, I think parents are okay with that.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to talk a lot about the martial arts culture and the culture within your school. Let's dive into a couple of questions here real quick. As
Sure.
far as, what first drew you into martial arts, and when did you realize it would become your life's mission, not just a hobby?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so I think from a young age, I was extremely active. I was full of energy. I was a healthy child, basically, and always moving around, jumping. And I was very, very into superheroes. I mean, you're talking Spider Man, Superman, Batman. At one stage, I actually believed that I was Superman. And at a young age, I already realized that I wanted more to do with my physical abilities. And I actually found a picture that was sent to me by my mother, actually, and I'm going to try to pull it up, which will highlight how much of a superhero I actually thought, because my father at the time had to nail down the windows, because this is me believing that I'm Superman trying to jump out of the windows on a second or third floor
I love
apartment
it.
building. So that's little Warren dressed as Superman, and I think it was almost impossible to get me out of that. I think there was a fight to go and have that bath and shower. I do look a little bit scruffy, to be honest. Now that I look at it, I tend to have to agree with my mom that maybe it wasn't that easy. Maybe I was a superhero to avoid that shower or bath. I don't know. I look a little bit unkempt, I must say, but that was kind of cute. And then I found another one that had been sent to me, and even my selection of pajamas at the time. And here's a little bit of an older Warren, but
Mm-hmm.
that's me, and you can see I selected like kung fu pajamas,
Yep. You got those
and
kung
even the
fu shoes on
slippers.
too.
Yeah, and even those like slippers are the kung fu slippers. And
Yep.
I basically walked around as thinking I'm a karate superhero, and I wanted to always fly. And I think that was the start of it. And then as I got older, I think me and you, we are similar age. In the time that we were growing up, and when we were getting to our teens, my friends used to have like Carmen Electra on their walls, Pamela Anderson, Cindy Crawford, probably Heidi Klum, all of these supermodels up on their walls. And then on my walls was pictures of Bruce Lee, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and my friends are like, man, Warren, like, what is with this room? Like, we all have Cindy Crawford, and I'm like, nah, man, these are the guys, like Bruce Lee, like with those ripped
Yeah.
muscles, with the blood, like the streaks from,
Yep.
what is that? What is the movie? Enter the Dragon, or
Mhm. Yeah.
so I knew from a young age, I just loved martial arts, everything about it. I started at 6.5, almost 7 years old is when I started. And I actually started with the same instructor that I was with for 40 years. And only this year, recently, just a few months ago, he passed away.
Mm. Well,
So
that we are, I think, pretty close in age, and I have been with the same instructor since I was 10 years old, and he just also recently passed away. It's sad for us to see that our because we remember them as our you talk about childhood heroes, right? Those people, those pictures on the wall. Like I had Bruce Lee, I had Shokasugi, the ninjas. That was like
yeah.
the big thing in the 80s. But looking up to our instructors, that was someone that became that superhero. Also for me, pro wrestling, Hulk Hogan was another one,
Oh,
but
sure, me
that
too.
that's that's beside the point. But so you started at 6.5, almost 7, and you trained with the same instructor all along. Tell us about the style of martial art that you practiced and how that evolved over time.
Yeah, so I've primarily been doing Shotokan karate, which is a style of karate, actually similar to what I think you do is Tang Sudo.
Yes.
They are very, very similar. And even recently, I saw you doing a version of what we call Teki Shodan. I don't know what you call it on your,
Uh huh.
but I was like, oh, wow, I could learn a
Forms are
trick
very
because,
similar. Very
yeah,
similar.
really, really similar. The cool thing that I think growing up that gave me a great advantage in my martial art training is my instructor. His name is Norman Robinson. If you're out there, you should definitely look him up. He was a pioneer of karate in South Africa, but his father, Professor Jack Robinson, was a pioneer of judo, and my instructor had a eighth degree, I believe, an eighth degree in judo, and then a ninth degree in Shotokan karate through the JKS Japanese affiliation. Having said that, we also used to bring in different styles. For example, there was a Kido that we brought in. We had a specialized Aikido program, and Norman's son, Mark Robinson, has experience in sumo wrestling and powerlifting, and he's like a champion in jiu-jitsu and judo. So I had this all-round collaboration of traditional karate, judo with the throws and the sweeps and the takedowns, and I think that made me an all-round martial artist. And yes, my instructor did train us to win gold medals, in particular world championship and world medals. But he also made an emphasis that if we go to a tournament, for example, and there's 5 judges, say, judging your kata, and you don't win that particular tournament, not to take it so personally, because that's only 5 people's opinion that judge you that day. Had there been 5 different judges, 5 different people, it might have been a totally different result. And the same in point fighting in karate. There's flags that go out, judges see different things, and it's basically how the world is seen. One people see it one way, another group of people see it a different, and the same thing is true for karate.
Well, I love that you also expressed how important it was for you to kind of borrow and learn from the other styles of martial arts. I mean, I again, we both came up in very traditional backgrounds. Tong Sudo, it was an American Tong Sudo under the Chuck Norris organization. But my instructor Dennis Ichikawa, had other black belts that kind of dabbled in other arts and brought it into what we did. I remember first being introduced to jujitsu very early on as a young black belt, and then Hapkido and now Krav Maga and now Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I think what's cool about that is that we get to have that white belt mindset where we're always searching for something new or learning something new or adding to our art rather than being kind of the status quo, like this is what we do, this is what we've always done, and this is the way it's always going to be. I think that's where the evolution of martial arts not only helps us stay involved for 40 plus years, but it helps allow our students to have different avenues to experience.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's at the end of the day is we ourselves love martial arts, so we stay in the game. And then I think our duty as martial arts school owners is to create that same love for our students so that they too can be involved in the art and stay with us for a long time. And even if it's not with us, to at least stay in the art, because quite frankly, we know the benefits of the martial arts. And that's why a lot of the martial art instructors have their children join martial arts because it's It's something that we know is good for us, whether it's the flexibility, the strength, the discipline, the confidence. If it helps us, we feel it will be good for our children. And we always want what's best for us. We want what's best for our children.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, that leads me into a great question here. You train thousands of students over the years. What's one transformation story that still gives you goosebumps?
You know what? There's so many. One that comes to mind is the first adaptive special needs student that I took. And believe it or not, that student still trains with me to this day,
That's awesome.
and which is a testament to the discipline that they have, that their parents have, and I think the fact that we can take a child that could potentially be frustrated or struggling with themselves in life and potentially have a difficult upbringing in terms of society. The fact that we can take that child and develop confidence and self-esteem and get them to do things that not even their parents sometimes think that they can do is is a testament to instructors like myself and other instructors out there like you that just bring out the best. In other words, you make the best version of someone, and sometimes that version people didn't know themselves that they could be that amazing of a version. So I think
Yeah.
that's a story that sticks out. And the cool thing is, doing what I do, I get to repeat this on a daily basis,
Yeah.
and that's what I like about the martial arts is that you don't know who's going to walk in the door next and whose life you can impact next. And as we get bigger and better at what we do, we train our team to continue that legacy so they too can have that impact on the children, on their families, and then on their community ultimately.
Yeah. Well, I love a few things that you said right there. Number one, for any child with any student for that matter with any kind of disability, any kind of special needs, you mentioned that they have the discipline to keep going, but really the parents have the discipline to keep them going because in society most sports will, I mean, listen, if you are blind or you're in a wheelchair, you're not playing AYSO soccer. It's just not going to happen. But martial arts, we can find this way. I remember I worked with a blind student that they thought that they were told that he could never do anything. He was never going to play sports. He was never going to be able to be involved in activities. And the parents kind of lost a little bit of hope. But when they brought him into the karate school, and we were working on just the things you were saying, giving him some confidence, giving him self-esteem, making him believe that he could do things that nobody ever thought they could do, including the parents, because they were always told that they wouldn't be able to do it. I think it's the most amazing gift that we're able to do that. And for you to be able to work with this child and that the parents to be a team with you to help bring out the best version of their child. And I think that is and should be our goal. I think, when ego gets involved is where we focus on having the best students or, every student training to be a world champion. I mean, not every student has that goal. Not every student wants to do that. Not every parent signs their child up for martial arts. But I think what every parent wants, every child wants, and what we want is the best version of that student.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's actually super rewarding as well when you can not only supersede the students' goals and expectations, but you supersede the parents' expectations. Normally, like if there's a graduation or there's some kind of special event, those parents bring their parents. So the cool thing about our industry is we get to meet, yes, the students, we get to meet their parents, but then, which is very, very rare in a lot of industries, we get to meet the grandparents as well. And we in our school have that situation quite often where we've got the kid, the parents, and the grandparents actually training in our school, and it's very, very cool that to see that.
And you know what I love when we have grandparents in the school? I don't know if you experience this, but after every test, whether it's a lower ranking test, a black belt test, a performance, it's always the grandparents that come up to me afterwards and go, "You guys are just amazing at what you do." And I love the ethics and the values and all the things that that old school discipline and respect. They really latch onto that. I get that more often from grandparents than I ever get from the parents. Do you get the same?
I mean, yeah, we get that a lot. And you know what? I say to the parents, like, for example, before a graduation or before a lesson, even, I'll say to the grandparents, you're about to have the best show of your whole life. You could come to New York, you could go to Broadway, spend hundreds, if not thousands, on a ticket to go watch actors on Broadway performing. And believe me, they're extremely talented. But I always tell them this show that you're about to watch with your grandchild doing things that you never thought they were going to do is going to be the best show of your whole life. And quite often, quite often we get something called a Kleenex moment. And if you don't know what a Kleenex moment is, it's basically a moment where we get the grandparents to cry. And it's normally the part where we will have them do an activity where we tie in the grandparents to the exercise, for example, saying, I love my grandparents. And you'll just see them like break down like, and it's like such a cool feeling, you know?
Well, and I mean those Kleenex moments are important, and as well as the breakthrough moments. I mean, I like to remind parents and grandparents and family members that are watching testing, you know, I want you to look back and remember the first day that your child stepped on the floor. And I want you to look at them now and imagine that they've come from that white belt to now. Imagine what that's going to look like, you know, in another 6 months or in another year. And it's just really eye-opening when they have those breakthrough moments of like, when they were a white belt, they couldn't stand still in ready position, or they didn't know which was their left or their right. Now they're moving with confidence. They're moving quickly. They're standing taller. They have better, you know, eye contact. You know, those are the things that the parents really latch onto. And I think that that's what brings the greatest value to what we do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. And what's even more difficult, though, to explain to parents is this is what we got going on at white belt, but imagine what it's going to look like at black belt. And
Mm-hmm.
if we could put into a time capsule that child and transport them all the way from a white belt and see that black belt moment, it's an extremely powerful moment, empowering moment, special moment. And I've come kind of prepared. I'm going to find a little picture of me when I got my black belt. And the background to my black belt is I failed my black belt test twice in South Africa. And my instructor said, okay, he was about to go to England to do an international seminar, which is when all the highest level Japanese in your style get together. They normally each take a section of a seminar teaching and empowering and impacting their knowledge. And then at that same international seminar, they have a testing where the whole Japanese panel will sit on a board and make a determination whether or not you should pass. So this is me in England getting the results that I went to full Shodan, which is a full black belt, and I was about 13, 14 at the time.
Wow.
So that's me standing in my little line there, getting the results of the black belt.
And that's a life-changing moment too. I mean, I always, you know, when I'm tying on a black belt, I always kind of whisper in their ear. I said, how does it feel? You know, and they just smile, and they can't really put it into words, but all they usually come up with is really good. You know, but like,
Yeah.
when you tie on that black belt, that goes back, you know, for some of them years of training to get there. But we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about black belt in just a second. Let me give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors for our show. This is Raptor Extreme Karate. Hey guys, I'm Jason Flame with Master Motivation Podcast here with Warren Levy from Warren Levy Championship Martial Arts. That was Raptor Extreme Karate. We just finished up the first almost the first half of this interview today, just kind of talking about your background, coming from South Africa to the United States in Long Island, New York. Started training at 6.5 years old, earned your black belt. We just talked about that at about 13 years old. And we were talking about that feeling of earning a black belt and what that actually means. It's really hard sometimes for parents when they come in and they're doing their very first introductory class, or they're just starting out at white belt, and then just getting them to that first belt. But then we start talking about what it means to be a black belt. What does it mean to be a black belt to you?
Yeah, so obviously a black belt is literally a black belt. It's a piece of material, and what we will do, me and you included, for a black belt is just ridiculous. I mean, if you think about it, if we had an instructor come into our school even and said, listen, today the person that does the most amount of punches or kicks in the bag, I'm going to put this little stripe on your belt. I promise you, I'm probably going to kill myself to win that stripe on my black belt.
Yep.
It's just ridiculous what we will do for a black belt. But really what it comes down to is that belt is a symbolism of years of dedication, years of training. And sometimes what I get feedback is, oh, how come that person got a black belt? I'm so much better than them, and I'm only a yellow or orange or blue belt. And I always have to explain to them that it's the journey towards a black belt that makes you a black belt. Everybody starts their journey at a different place, at a different time, for example, different ages. I mean, I don't know what the oldest students you have, but we have some students up there in age. And I think that black belt journey is what it really means to be a black belt. Having said that, curriculum is also involved. But again, we would potentially adapt our curriculum for a student that cannot do our full executed black belt curriculum. For example, if someone cannot kick, we're not going to be asking them to do front kicks, round kicks, side kicks, and back tests in their black belt exam. So to me, a black belt means the journey and the path to the end goal. And I believe that a black belt is only a master of the basics. So that black belt is really the start of a new journey. And it's very hard to explain to someone, because we have had people's mindsets, parents and children, that I want to get to a black belt. And when I get to a black belt, I'm going to quit and I'm going to go into something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, to me, just defeats the whole purpose of you getting a black belt. Why would you get the black belt and then stop? That belt shows the symbolic, tangible item that shows that you put in the effort, the dedication, the energy, the sweat, the tears to get to that point. Why stop? So to me, a black belt is a symbol of resilience, discipline, and focus.
And there's we could probably have an entire discussion for the remainder of this interview just about black belt and what it means and how people perceive it. But I know you do a lot of reels, you do a lot of videos, TikTok videos, and I'm sure, because I get it every now and again, and I know friends of mine get it, and the question becomes, well, does that really work? Or how is an 8-year-old a black belt? And just all these different things. And I think you kind of just nailed it with black belt is an achievement. Just like, maybe graduating high school, it's an achievement. It's a great achievement. It's not the end goal achievement. It's not the end all. It doesn't represent that, a 7-year-old black belt can take on a 25-year-old male, right? I mean, it's just not that, but it is the journey. Now that there's a curriculum, like you said, there's requirements, and if you look at karate versus jiu-jitsu, I mean, in karate, you can earn a black belt anywhere from 3 to 5 years, let's say on average, right?
Yeah.
A black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu is going to take 10 years or more to get there. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the black belt, like you said, I think your best answer at the very beginning was the black belt is a black piece of cloth that you route. Where sometimes I wish, I even tell my students this, I say, I wish that we could just all take our belts off for just a minute, not look at the belt and compare to one another, but just really focus on the training. But I mean, at the end of the day, in our Western culture, the belt system was created as motivation. It was considered motivation to just keep training, keep striving for that next level. And that's why I still love the belt system, because it does give that. Just like you said, we have a saying that the things we would do for a piece of tape, just to put on our belt,
Exactly.
because it's that sense of accomplishment. It's that sense of reaching, a pinnacle moment. But that's not definitely not black belt is not the end. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, talking about that cloth, back in the day, and I don't want to quote exactly what back in the day is, but everybody used to only wear a white belt. And the belt started off white and it became a little bit darker in color as it got a little bit dirtier. And the only way it became dirtier is because of the sweat, because of the movement. And that, from what I understand, is how a white belt then became a little bit of a darker color, became like a yellowish color. And then that became a little bit darker, became like an orange, and then like a greeny, and then like a blue, somewhere in that order. Then it became like purple, and it symbolized the colors getting darker and darker. And depending on your style or your tradition, your colors are put into a certain category. But I think the idea behind that white belt is that the colors get a little bit darker, darker, darker. Finally, that's why most schools have a brown belt followed by like a black belt of sorts. And that's my idea and understanding behind the white belt. Everyone is a white belt. And they didn't even necessarily have exams. You could just tell, you could look, oh man, that guy's belt is like filthy. He must have been doing this for a long time.
Well, and that's exactly what I say to students in class. I said, if we all go and take our belts off and put them to the side, I said, I bet I can tell you what belt you are just by watching you and how you perform, with your experience. And it's funny, we all tell that story of the everybody started at white belt, and the way you became a black belt was it basically just got dirty enough because you practiced long enough that it turned black. Well,
Exactly.
let's move into some of your impact in your community. From anti-bullying to women's self-defense, you've launched several community initiatives. Which program has had the biggest impact, and why?
I think bullying is always going to be in most communities the biggest impact because yes, there's stranger danger. Yes, there's all different topics we can bring up, and they are real topics. But bullying happens every day. And you know what? Even to this day, me and you, we get bullied. Whether it's our manufacturer saying the prices because the tariffs have gone up, we get, in our own way, we get bullied in our business, to this day. But I think for children, the bullying is real. From stories, people come into our school saying kids were pushed into a locker and try to have the locker closed, to situations happening in bathrooms where kids' heads are getting pushed into toilets. Like really, really serious things happening to children that is, kids don't forget this, and even going into an adult stage of development, they don't forget that. And I feel like as martial artists, we have our own take on bullying because we do learn actual self-defense techniques. For example, if someone does put their hands on us, whether it's a choke, whether it's a grab, whether it's a punch, whatever it is that happens, martial arts does train us how to handle that situation. And even if we can't necessarily defeat that bully, it has given us that confidence to believe in ourselves. And I do believe that when someone is confident, right there in that act, we can prevent a bullying situation from even happening. The minute we stand up to a bully, and potentially we'll go down with a fight, but at least we're going to stand up to them. And I'm pretty sure that bully won't try whatever it is on you again if you give them a real fight and a real challenge. Bullies normally look for the easier way out. But then again, there's all different strokes, all different folks. And I do think that my biggest impact is bullying, which starts not only in the schools, but into the playgrounds and into the bigger, wider community.
Well, and you said in the beginning, there's different levels of bullying, and yeah, you can be bullied as a child, you can be bullied as a teenager, you can be bullied as an adult. But the confidence that martial arts instills in our students is almost the preventative tool to being bullied, because like you said, bullies like to pick on easy targets, people that are less confident. So when we develop that confidence and we bring out that self-esteem, not only are they less likely to be attacked, if they were attacked or they were bullied, they could brush it off easier or be prepared, because the bully isn't always ready for what's coming. The bully is usually using a position of power until they realize that they don't have power, because this student that has confidence, that could throw a good punch or throw a good kick, it just takes one. I mean, I've always told my students, you always try to avoid situations, but when it comes down to it, I said, if you're going to hit them, you need to hit them as hard as you can and make them remember that. And even if it doesn't win the fight, you're going to gain a little bit of respect, I think, just by being able to fight back.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I even remember as a kid, I must have been somewhere around 13 years old, and I was on the swimming team in South Africa. This was in school, and I remember that there was, at the same time in South Africa, there was swimming and rugby. And as a South African child growing up, you had to choose either you're on the swimming team or you're on the rugby team. So you can imagine the rugby team was big, strong, fit guys,
The
tough, macho,
beasts.
beast. And then you got the swimming team, and we were all like lean and like light boned and like, and I remember we had to, from our pool, we had to walk up the grandstand, all the stairs, and we had to walk past the rugby field in our Speedos. So it was at that age I realized, man, bullying can be real, but I never really had any incidents, even though I was walking with my little Speedo past all the rugby players.
Well, listen, I got to tell you, I mean, number one, I know how rough and tough rugby is, but swimming is no easy task. I mean, I've done a couple events, one triathlon in that I can remember, that I had to do an open water swim. And that was literally the hardest thing that I ever did. Riding the bike, no big deal. Running, no big deal. Swimming. So, I mean, you can't discount that swimming was any less tough necessarily than rugby, but walking by in your Speedos was probably pretty tough in front of the rugby team.
That's what it is. You had to own it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. All right. Well, let's dive into another question. You've coached national medalists and Team USA level athletes. What separates elite competitors from the rest?
I think back to myself, and I also now think back to me being a coach now, and I'm not exempt from still competing. It's not on my highest level of things to get done anymore. But I do know that when I was competing, I had to make a choice. If I wanted to compete on the elite level, I needed and I had to put in the work, because when you get to international level, everyone is pretty close. And something has to define you. Something has to make you a little bit better, sharper, quicker, faster than the other person. Whether you're doing forms or whether you're doing sparring, you have to put in the work. So I think the major difference between an elite athlete and just a regular student is, number one, the mindset. They have to have a focused and disciplined mindset, knowing that no matter what, they have to put in the work. And the second thing to it is you have to outwork your opponent. For example, sometimes before I was going to go to championship, and I knew that there was someone at that tournament that was like really good. And I'd go to my sensei and I'd say, wow, I'm like really worried about this person, whoever it would be. And he used to say, put that person out of your mind. Just don't worry about them. What I want you to do is to outwork them. Put in the work. whoever it is, don't even think of that person anymore. I want you to imagine that whatever they're doing, you're going to do more than them. And you know what? It does work. That mindset changes. If I was doing 10 push-ups, it would push me to do 12 push-ups. So I think the dedication, the commitment, and the focused intensity of that athlete. And the other thing is, it can sometimes be quite tricky because if you're doing forms, for example, in a world championship, you normally have to do about 3 or 4 max. You only get to train those 3 or 4 techniques or katas. And that takes a lot of discipline, a lot of training to repeat the same move over and over and over. And even if you're sparring, normally you only have a couple techniques that work. You don't all of a sudden win with like 20 different techniques. You normally have your one technique that you specialize. And it's kind of, you might be able to help me. Is it better to learn 1,000 techniques and do them once, or one technique and do them 1,000 times? And exactly. So that was my kind of training that I did growing up. And this is the level that we try and do with our students is we take something that they're good at and we focus on it.
Yeah, well, you nailed it right away with the mindset being the biggest thing, because the mindset is what kind of controls everything else. The mindset allows you to have a stronger work ethic. Mindset reminds you not to worry about the other person, but just to push yourself to your absolute best, right? And when you're competing at that level, or really at any level, because I talk with students about this when we're getting ready for tournaments. I say, look, you're going to be competing against however many people in your division. It just takes, like you said, one thing that you do a little bit better, a little bit stronger, that stands out just a little bit more above and beyond. So everybody's going to have good stances. Everybody's going to have good power. Everybody's going to have good focus. But what's the one thing that's going to put you over the edge above and beyond everybody else? And that's why we have to make sure we nail down all our basics and just hit the techniques hard every single time. And it's boring. It is boring to do the same form over and over and over, or the same technique over and over and over. But the success is in doing that mundane task over and over until it's just exceptional.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you know what? It's also, I think, a big help when the parents can explain that to if they're a child, right? If they've got their children doing it, if that parent can explain to their child, as well as the instructor, that yes, this is going to be a little bit boring. Your instructor is going to be drilling you over and over and over, and we have an extremely fantastic instructor that actually runs the whole competition team, and he is fantastic with the children, and he's also great communicating with the parents. And I think that's something that is amazing. Like after every tournament, he calls up each of the parents, because there's no higher emotion than when a parent watches a child and they think they did it wrong, or
Yeah, right.
or the referee didn't see it the way that we saw it. And I think that's a huge thing, that if the parents are educated or knowledgeable, that they themselves know there's not going to be a perfect, every tournament is just going to go smooth. I think that's quite a huge factor with elite competitors as well. I mean, I've gone all the way to Japan representing South Africa, and I lost the first round, and I didn't think I should lose. And we had parents here say, "Oh, we went all the way from Long Island to Queens, and we lost." And they mad. There's fire and smoke, and we're like, "We got another tournament in 2 weeks. It's going to be all right."
Right.
Your kids are going to forget. You might not. The kids forget like in a day or two, and sometimes it is motivating. If they do lose, they have to come back and train a little bit harder.
Yeah. Well, and everybody wants to win, right? Everybody wants to win. And sometimes we get so focused, especially parents, tournament parents, they're so focused on the win. But one of the things, and maybe as a younger instructor, I may have had that same challenge of just like wanting to win and get first place. But something that I find myself doing more now as a more experienced coach and instructor is reminding the students. Like, I had a student that went to a tournament, and I don't think that he placed at all, but I said, that was the best form that you've ever done. And just that alone was enough to boost the confidence to say, hey, that's the best form you've ever done. You may not have won first place today, but it's the best form that you've ever done. And that shows growth. And if we can continue that growth and continue that confidence, they can move to that first place position at some point. But I think that that's where the focus should be on growth over winning. Now, trust me, I hate losing more than anything else in the world. But if I grew and got better from the last time, I know I'm getting closer to that win next time.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we do get quite a lot of feedback from other instructors. For example, a lot of my friends run tournaments here in the tri-state, Long Island, New York area. And often, when you're hosting a tournament, you get all the complaints, but you also are watching a lot of what's going on. And a lot of the time, the tournament hosts come up to me and say, just want to let you know your coaching staff and the team, they really are great with the children. And we see that when the children lose, they're very caring and compassionate. And I too am like that because I say, don't worry, you did great. I'm very, very proud of you. I think you did your best. And I'll ask the child, did you do your best? And often they say yes. And I said, that's all we can ask for. You put in the work, you put in the training. We don't care if you win or lose.
And sometimes on the flip side, a good coach is going to tell a student or a player what they need to hear more than what they want to hear. Oh, it's okay. I know you didn't win this time, but that student didn't give their best effort, or we know that they didn't put in the work, or they know that they didn't train. Like sometimes they need to hear that as well. I know that I hear things from my coach or my coaches, and I don't want to hear it, but I needed to hear it because it's the truth, right? If you're not training all the time, if you're not putting in the work, if you're not giving 100% every single time, you can't expect to go to a tournament or perform on a test at your best. So I think that it goes both ways. Being able to build students up, but also being able to be honest. Because the last thing that I want to do is give a student false confidence. Oh, you did great. That was awesome, but it really wasn't. It wasn't their best. So I might need to tell them, hey, you did this great, but we really need to work on this area here, right? So again, both sides work.
No, I think that's true, and we do have those conversations, and oftentimes those are easier conversations, believe it or not. When the kid turns around and says, "Ah, it was a bad day," sometimes that's easier to say, "Yeah, you see, we had a bad day, and now we have to grow from there, and now we've learned what not to do." And sometimes that in itself was worth going to the tournament.
That's
So
100%.
that's how we learn. Even with my own son, he went to a couple tournaments. The first few tournaments that he went into, after not competing for a long, long time, he really got like wiped out pretty soon. And then it wasn't long that, with experience and training and understanding what needed to be done, which which is what a lot of the kids need to do when they go and start their tournaments. They actually don't know what it is because all they've done is been in our schools training and perform in front of our students. But when they go out of the school, it's a very unique and very daunting experience, the first few tournaments. So there is definitely a learning curve as one progresses from small school to bigger tournaments to national, international. There's always learning curves.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day for us, tournaments aren't the end all. I mean, tournaments are great. I wouldn't say that we're necessarily a competition school. I encourage students that want to compete to go and compete. I encourage students that want to grow to go out and try something new. But it's all about getting outside of our comfort zone and doing something like you said, getting out of the school for a minute and just seeing what it's like. That totally opens up a whole new view. I mean, I've had students that win first place at all these local school tournaments, and then they go to just like that next level tournament outside the school, and they're just blown away because it's like, wow, there's so much talent out here. And it's like, well, yeah, that's how you get to the next level. And then there's a level above that. So, getting out of the comfort zone and doing things, you're not comfortable with help you grow.
I think you're right. It's really a tournament or a competition is really a means of seeing where you're at, and it's a realistic where you're at. So if you go to that tournament and you're like, whoa, my division is like all these kids are crazy good. Normally, what it does is you say to yourself, wow, I thought I was good, But now I've seen all these other kids that are
Hmm.
really, you can visually see that they're better than you. And now that you've seen that visualization of it, and not from just your instructor doing it, but other children doing, whether it's the performance from forms or the kids that are sharp with their fighting skills. And once you've seen it, now you know what to do. The playbook is there, it's presented to you. So all you have to
Hmm.
do now is go back to the drawing board and sharpen up your skills, like iron sharpens iron, which is one of my favorite statements, you know?
Yep. Proverbs 27:17. Yes.
There you go.
All right. Is there a moment in your career, good or bad, that fundamentally changed how you teach, lead, or run your business?
Oh, that's a good one. I think talking about running the business, I think when it comes to running the business, the fundamentals that I have is I'm very into team. I love my team, and I wouldn't be where I am without them. And I never hide that from my team. I wish I did it even more, but I think I do it enough, but maybe I could even do more. But running my business is actually a team business. And my team, I really have included them into the business. And I've been so blessed to have the most amazing rocks in my life, from our managers to vice presidents to our CFO and the instructors. I mean, we're like a family. I mean, if I called them now and said, listen, I need you to pick me up and take me to wherever it is, my car broke down. I know I could pick them up, and I know they would come to pick me up, and they would take me anywhere. It's just that's the kind of team that we have, is that we're there for one another. People get sick. I've just had a cold, to tell you the truth, that I'm recovering from, and I haven't been there. My team has been there. They've filled in for me. We had another instructor out sick. We cover for him, and this to me is the fundamentals of our business, is when everyone is there for each other. We've got each other's backs, and we genuinely do care for each other.
So tell me, how do you build that culture within your school? How do you build the culture of creating that team atmosphere and that closeness and where you guys have each other's back? What do you think leads to that?
I do think it starts at the top. Is if I was to go in there and be extremely aggressive and mean and ran with an iron fist, I think that that might be one of the first things, is that I like to think I'm friendly and accommodating and understanding, and I try and always put myself in my team's position and how they're feeling. And I think that compassion is one of the reasons to help with the team. And then the other thing is you catch more bees with honey. And I think by being nice and by being friendly, and some people may not agree that I'm so friendly on the floor, because I'm very, very hard on that mat. But that is, again, it's my persona. That is my love for the art. That is me trying to bring out the best in you. Like I tell the students, you think I'm mad, you think I'm crazy, but I go home, I have dinner, I go to bed. I don't think about how mean I was to you in class. And a lot of the students will go home and cry and say, man, he was mean to me. And like, we were very offended. And I try and repeatedly explain that's part of the team experience, is I'm going to be hard on you, and you guys got to get through this together, whether it's the students in a class or whether it's the staff in our business environment, is that we tough, but we're understanding as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, we probably both came up again in a traditional background where tough love was a method of teaching, and I think that over the years that has changed quite a bit. But there's still, there's still some days where I get out on the mat and man, I'm super hard, but I have to sit the class down every once in a while and remind them the very same thing, that like, hey, I'm being tough on you now because I want you to be better, because I want you to be stronger, because I know you can do it. And it's kind of relating how those work together, where you can get the parents to be on your team and support you, because that could go either way, right? If you're super tough and the parents are like, man, I just don't like how he's presenting this. But if they understand the presentation, because if you were to walk in my school sometimes, I'm very loud, I'm very aggressive, I'm very excited. But at the end of the day, like, I absolutely love, each one of the students that I teach. And I think for me also, what helps with the team is knowing the strength of each player. When you know the strength of each player, you don't have five quarterbacks. You got one quarterback, and you need to know who that quarterback is. And then you got to know who they can throw to or who they can hand the ball off. I'm not a huge football player myself, but it's a good analogy to understand that every person on the team has their strengths and has their abilities. And one of the things that I really try to do is step back, and I wasn't always good at this before, but step back and let people show their strengths, because it makes them a more valuable player on the team. And then continuing to strengthen their strengths and minimize their weaknesses, help them with training along the way. But I think that has helped me a lot. Is there anything else that has helped you grow your team? I mean, I remember meeting you in the very beginning. You were just kind of getting like the business going a little bit stronger, if I remember correctly. I know that you did a lot of private lessons in the beginning. That's what I remember most about you. But building the team and building the vision of the where the school can go. What are some other things that helped you with that?
Well, I think just going back into what you're saying, what you're saying is actually what I do. For example, we have the most amazing instructor that runs our competition team. He's 100% in charge of that competition team. We have another instructor that's extremely involved and focused on our demonstration team, which we actually have gone to a stadium nearby us, UBS Arena, which is home of the New York Islanders. And we've been doing demonstrations at this arena, UBS Arena, for a couple of years now. And everyone has, like you're saying, we've found their love, their passion, their niche. And for example, we have a CFO. He's the best CFO in the world to me. He's just fantastic. And he is just focused on finances. And anyone and everyone that comes into our school knows that if there's something with financial questions, that's the person to go to. So just tapping on that, I do happen to agree. And that is something that we have done quite successfully for many, many years, in our school.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to jump into the last question. So anybody watching live, if you have any questions or comments that you want to drop before we finish up, please do so. But the last question is what do you hope every student, parent, or instructor remembers about their experience with you and your school?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, first of all, I hope everyone is with me forever. That would be my hope, but we know that may or may not be true. But I do hope that they leave or they continue to think that, wow, this place was friendly, they were caring, they wanted the best for my child or for themselves, that our place is clean, that it's hygienic, that we communicated effectively and efficiently with each other as a team and with them and with their children, and that we're just good communicators and good people all around. And that's one of the things that I actually look for when I'm hiring team members. I just want to know that they're good people, and obviously they have to have a certain level of martial arts skill, but I'm looking for people to turn around and say, wow, they were dedicated, they were loyal, and they really cared about me, even if I was only there for a few months. They're good guys. They're a good team of people over there. I like them.
Yeah. One of my favorite things is running into students, and just like you, my goal is when a student comes in, I hope they want to train with me for the rest of their life, right? But we know that kids are going to go off to school, people are going to start families, they're going to get married, they're going to move, things are going to happen. But what I really love within my community is running into a student that trained with me when they were, younger, and I'll run into them at the gym or the supermarket or wherever, right? And they'd be like, Master Flame, I just remember this memory, and they'll come out with, you know, a specific memory, and you know that really changed my life and how I look at things. And I have one student that I actually see very regularly, and it's like every time I see him, you know, everything that you taught me I can apply in my life. Even though I'm not doing martial arts, I still have the discipline to do all the things that I want to do because of what I learned in martial arts. And to me, like, that's a huge compliment just to hear that when people are coming out. And I'm sure that you hear that. The second best thing is, or maybe the first best, I don't know, but having a student that has a child and then brings them back to me, you know, when they have children. So I'm like this grandpa instructor now, I guess. And so I'm seeing that a lot more and more, but that's a huge compliment.
Yeah, we do get that quite often, and it is really wonderful. And you know, one of the things that comes to mind is when I was in South Africa. You know, I grew up there. I feel like I knew so many people when I used to walk in the streets. You know, I'd know everybody, you know, to a certain level. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
very friendly. And my little neighborhood, I grew up in my neighborhood, in my little town, and I knew everybody, you know. And when I left and I first came to Long Island, New York, one of the things that I said to my mom is, "Oh, mom, it's so weird. I'll walk down the street and I don't know anybody. It's just it's uncanny. It's a weird feeling, like." And then 2 or 3 years later, she came to visit, and we were walking down the same Central Avenue, and I was like, "Oh, hey, hi, hi, hi," and like we couldn't even like cross
Yep.
the street. And she was
Yeah.
like, "Remember when you said like?"
Yep.
And now I'm like, "Oh man, I can't even like get to where we're trying to get to for coffee because there's just so many people." And it's, you know, I could be in a different state sometimes, and
Hmm.
I hear my name, I'm like, what? And then I'm like, what? Like, how do they, like, how?
Yeah.
So it is something really cool, you know, being involved in. And we are like our own little celebrities to a degree in our own communities. And, you know, I have to say that I have a very warm, welcoming, awesome community that I've been involved in for um, over 20 years at this point. And you know, in that time, you've definitely made a lot of connections. You've made a lot of friends,
Yep.
and it's just a wonderful experience seeing all these people all the time. And our community is growing. So as the community grows, our school is growing with them.
That's awesome. But hey, congratulations on all of your success and everything you're doing. We're at the end of our time, believe it or not. We're a little bit
Great.
over an hour today. So thanks for spending the time with me today and sharing some of your story. I hope that everybody watching live really enjoyed it. Please go to Master Motivation Podcast and subscribe and share this video so everybody can hear Mr. Levy's story. And I'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
I look forward to that very much, and good luck for that up and coming fight. I know there's someone in big trouble coming their way.
That's right. They're in big trouble.
That's
They're
right.
gonna
That's it.
sweep the leg. It's gonna happen. All right, well, guys, this is Warren Levy from Warren Levy Championship Martial Arts. Thank you so much for your time, and everybody, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Master Motivation Podcast.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right, thanks. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.